Hey, what the? Ah!
So within game design, there's a tension between play and narrative. As McCarthy, Curran and Byron said, there are those that claim that computer and video games should be about the experience of playing rather than the pursuit of narrative. The opposition argue that games should reward players, not just in the form of subsequent levels and challenges or an end of level ditty, but something more meaningful. These two camps are divided retrospectively into ludologists and narratologists. Arkham's Batman and Joker is genius, and I can show you why with a single clip.
Welcome to the madhouse, Batman! I set a trap, and you sprang it gloriously!
Did you see that? Let's play it again! What Arkham's Batman and Joker's relationship does is merge these two priorities together by turning the Joker into a narrative figure which gives Batman / the player permission to play. As I quote from Bezio's study about this very exact thing, the Joker's demands indicate his presumption over control over both the player character and the game. Batman recognizes this, saying,
"Tell me something. You've never let me catch you this easily."
The emphasis here is on let. The Joker has permitted Batman's actions, just as he will permit the player character actions throughout the game. Thus far, the player has been limited to following the Joker and enduring his insults, and when the Joker springs his trap, the player remains helpless. The sense of powerless is what creates the opportunity for play. I know this all sounds very rhetorical, but rhetoric is what makes the interactive narrative aspect of video games so satisfying. It's having the ability to live in the context and perform it. It's what makes you feel like Batman. I know, right? I can't believe I said it too. What makes video game narratives unique is A, the ability to enjoy Batman's ass for long stretches of time, and B, the idea of interactive participation. Even if the game has no branching story and is completely linear, the ability to just press the button to perform the action, that transforms you from just being a potato observing and into someone more like an actor. This is what makes Arkham Asylum so effective and stand out. It succeeds in creating the exact power fantasy you'd assume Batman would be like.
There could be a clue as to where she took Gordon.
I don't agree with the idea that gameplay and story are two different things in a video game, because gameplay is a story. Every video game's central loop has some sort of anticipation, action, and catharsis to it, and that is a story, be it Tetris to a gunfight. The narrative of a loop is one of the reasons why Ubisoft open worlds feel often so unexciting. The checkbox loop design of outposts, climbing up towers, fetch quests is so homogenized across their franchises, irrespective of their genre, location, and time period. Arkham Asylum is masterful in letting the verbs of gameplay be the story. The free flow combat makes fighting loads of escapees effortless and makes it less about survival and more about perfection. In stealth, Batman is vulnerable to gunfire, so fear is your main strategy. When Batman is at a dead end, he searches for clues and follows a trail. We're in the role of a defender, restoring order as Batman. There's no fat to what you're asked to do. There's no looting for resources or climbing up towers to unlock the map. Instead, it just lets the satisfaction of these actions as Batman speak for themselves, and then narratively harmonize them with presentation that makes it feel more official.
It's over, Joker.
Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, and also Arlene Sorkin too, return from the DCAU, and what they do is give the experience legitimacy, where even in this darker, more violent world, there's a familiarity, and more importantly, mundanity to it. It opens with Batman bringing the Joker in. He's already an unquestioned figure of authority. There's gossip of Joker's previous escape, and Batman is never ever surprised of anything. Even at the end of the game, he just shrugs off the night and goes off to fight Two-Face. Furthermore, the bios, the Riddler stuff, which doubles as Easter eggs for Batman's history, to even the skyline where you see the German expressionist architecture in Gotham, the player's mind never has trouble imagining what the world looks like outside of this island, and what the history of this world is.
Long night, Jim.
Joker invades City Hall and holds the mayor hostage, leaving it to me to juggle SWAT teams, the media, and you.
Batman is an unmoving monolith in a world of horrors, and this night is just another example of his immovability, and we get to indulge in it, perform and feel his nobility. But what happens when you flip this upside down? There was a vagueness to the world of Arkham Asylum that allowed every action you took to feel satisfying and legitimate.
I'm not sure I can stop him this time.
Recognizable voices, familiar costumes, a world exaggerated enough to home crazier stuff, but still gritty to feel sexy and new. So to make a sequel and to expand the story, you have to build idiosyncratic themes that can be climaxed in the next chapter. For Rocksteady, it's all about the power fantasy. The idea of Batman being a monolith has now been accentuated, so this time you/him is not the god, someone representing the status quo but is an inmate, and more importantly, an attacker.
You!
Get out of my way, Quinn.
Batman is no longer reacting to the chaos, but he is the chaos in an unjust order pitted directly against him, leading to many new fun flourishes like interrogating fools, gliding around scaring people, fucking up Penguin's empire, and more.
I was only here for Freeze and the hostages, but now I'm taking you down too.
On one hand, it makes playing the game especially satisfying while giving it a different vibe from Asylum, but also it begins to subtly, narratively incriminate Batman. He's escalating this world and destabilizing its order, something which Hugo specifically calls him out for.
It must be depressing. All your sacrifices, and yet you are the one to blame.
And it's literally because of his war on crime the city needed a bigger prison. Many locations like the museum, the old GCPD building, are filled with history destroyed by Batman's warring present.
Anyone with this blood in them will be dead within 24 hours.
Whose blood is it? Oh, it's yours, isn't it?
Arkham City is a direct deconstruction of Arkham Asylum in the sense that it asks a question it couldn't answer before because it was set in such a mundane night. What kind of world does Batman leave behind? Wonder City is a glimpse of a city's destroyed dreams of a better tomorrow. The very idea of Arkham City, where the prison Batman usually throws his enemies into, has now consumed more of the city like a disease. Hugo Strange's plan is about ending all of crime by killing everyone with giant helicopters. Ra's al Ghul is reaching the end of his life, so he's more obsessive over his mission, and we have the death of Bruce's love, Talia. Furthermore, Joker and Batman share the same blood now. At the core of their relationship in Arkham Asylum isn't hatred, but one of a strange, mutual, permissive sport. Just as Joker allowed Batman to end the game early in Asylum, he doesn't.
I'll give you this one for free. Knock me off, I dare you. End this. Pull the plug. Stop me once and for all.
And as a result, we, the player / Batman, get to play. The game doesn't exist without the player, and the game doesn't exist without the person in charge of the game. So the death of the Joker here is where the Arkham universe truly earns its place in becoming its own world. It destroys its own status quo, so under its bricolage world, comprised of various recognizable Batman voices, images, and stories, is now its own story.
I'm sorry, beloved. I didn't know.
This game is the beginning of the end, but Arkham City doesn't provide answers to this question. Instead, it lets these questions settle for the next game. But before we get there, we also got a prequel.
15, you needed to calm down.
If Arkham Asylum and Arkham City were A-star games, then Origins would be like a B- if I'm being kind. Still good, but the disparity is especially noticeable. Unfortunately for my recent playthrough for this video, it gets an F-, because I literally couldn't complete it. The map refused to load, reloading to the last checkpoint made it worse, and this was after I almost completed all of the Dark Knight challenges, which you can only do once per playthrough. So, on consoles without modders, hours and hours were wasted. Arkham Origins is far more conventional in every aspect, from storytelling to gameplay, and as a result, it immediately messes with Rocksteady's super naturalistic loops. From little things like the game stopping you mid-movement for scripted actions, which really makes you not feel like Batman. Instead of letting you upgrade whatever you choose, there's an annoying upgrade tree where stuff like special takedowns are tied to armor for some reason. If you're like me and you want a bit of risk where you've got all the moves but not the extra health, you can't now. The plot is fine. It's another one about Batman learning to not be an asshole and accept help.
I'm not big on taking orders from cops.
As an Arkham prequel, it's satisfying in terms of we watch him going from a rebel vigilante against the system to someone we know is going to be officiated and respected.
Warden, something's not right.
I'm going with him.
It also does a fun job in transitioning a world where those in charge, gangsters who used to speak like, "Hey, we're walking over here,"
You think you can steal from me?
is sprayed over by blood and multicolored lunacy.
I've dealt with psychopaths before, but this...
Sir, I strongly suggest you call in Captain Gordon.
But on a deeper artistic level, it doesn't entirely gel well with the Batman and Joker that were present in the previous games. They weren't characters in Asylum or City, they were abstract forces of nature, locked in a never-ending conflict.
Ready for the next round?
Always.
What?
I'll never let you win.
Rocksteady and Paul Dini worked very hard to always suggest a history but never show it, because it's that fog of vagueness and anonymity that allowed their sporty relationship to work directly symmetrically with the player's experience with the play. They weren't just Arkham's Batman and Joker, they were symbols bound together by a reality comprised of shared assumptions. So injecting specificity backwards into their story kinda compromises the power of this feeling, because you're not just imagining, but remembering. And that just feels off. It doesn't feel right. But not to be too harsh, one good thing about playing Arkham Origins between City and Night is the sense of poetry. We've seen how Batman got into Joker's head, now we get to see how Joker got into his. Arkham Knight is a game of strange, deep, and insane excesses. Scarecrow messes with all of Gotham. Everyone has left, but the criminals and responders who get bullied. So the only real person left is Batman, all alone to turn the tide with his bare hands and with a tank. It's satisfying, it's crazy, and it's where Rocksteady begins to also unfortunately lose their grip, largely because to scale this excess with an entire city, not just an island or city block, it relies on very recognizable city systems where we've got towers, checkpoints, APC chases, trailing missions, defeating everyone in arenas, races, and even shooting. And immediately these gameplay actions are an issue, because you don't feel like anybody. These are stuff that you've done everywhere else, as everyone else. It's inherently too anonymous. The story also doesn't entirely help. Arkham Knight has a very predictable twist with Jason Todd, a super abstract ending that doesn't quite tie everything together, and it's also very clear that Paul Dini didn't return to write, so loads of setups were sidelined from before. Hush is taken out as a key player, Harley Quinn's baby is retconned, Azrael led to pretty much nothing. I'd love to say there's some sort of Duel of the Fates style conspiracy behind it all, but Paul Dini did explain that he didn't actually have a plan originally and Rocksteady just wanted to follow their own. So instead, Stephen Hill and Ian Ball, who are respectively the game director and lead designer from Asylum and City, took his place. And you can really tell this time game designers were in the writing position, because the story is very clearly written with game design in mind.
I'm going after Barbara.
I'll contact you as soon as I track down any of Penguin's trucks.
In terms of letting you pick what you want to do at all times with a mission wheel. So in this large city, you can have fun with your freedoms and picking which part of the game you want to do. Stealth, brawl, or car related. The buffet of Batman, if you will. But as a result, the story becomes very modular. Most of the villains are sidelined into side quests. So the majority of the game's main story, you're just fighting the militia in these extremely impersonal tasks.
The militia must have hardwired into the transport control system. Find me their access point.
The city itself then, despite being unbelievably and heartbreakingly beautiful, loses a lot of the sense of personality Asylum and City had.
I should probably warn you, there's a significant militia presence ahead.
Because the diverse rogues don't control huge areas and buildings, like Harley Quinn in the penitentiary, Ivy in the gardens, Penguin in the museum, Joker in the steel mill. The map loses the feeling of every place being its own living world, and that operating in it was a personal mission of justice against individual bad people.
Good work, Robin.
Instead, by populating most of the places with just the same old militia people again, while listening to the same militia guy moaning at you for hours and hours, it feels immediately less satisfying. It turns Gotham from being a living, breathing world to more of just an arena. Although I've got to stress, none of this is bad at all. Arkham Knight is still an amazing game. I'd probably give it like an A-, but when you're following A stars, it's hard not to be bothered by these little things. But Arkham Knight does give an answer to what kind of world does Batman leave behind, and the answer is shit. We're introduced to quite explicitly the last Batman story, the day he died.
This is how the Batman died.
death, and well, it's a metaphorical death. This is the end game. The whole of Gotham is now the prison, and Batman is also a prisoner of his own mind. In Arkham Asylum, Joker was the man in charge of your environment. In City, he was in charge of you, and now in Night, he is you. Here to add an additional charismatic flair over the familiar gameplay, while also, more importantly, his commentary actively discourages you from having a more straightforward acceptance of what you're doing by poisoning the story with guilt.
Go on, Bats. You know you want to.
He reminds you and makes fun of Batman's mistakes. The entire story, in fact, is about exploring this. Bruce lies to Tim about Barbara's death to keep him useful. Jason Todd is mad because he was replaced. Jim is angry because Batman lied to him. Two-Face has commentary over how the mob went after him because they couldn't go after you.
Right here.
The reason why Scarecrow is doing any of this is to prove Batman wrong. To perform as Batman, this time, like an actor inhabiting the role given by the script, is to inhabit not only his awesome nobility, but also his guilt. Joker is here to be a highlighter for Batman's history and also present-day fallibility. And yours too, as the one making it happen as you're pressing the buttons. But then it's revealed Barbara's alive and she says,
"You don't need to worry about us or feel responsible. We're fighting with you, not for you, okay?"
It's good to have you back.
To balance things out and to also say that, yeah, Batman may have created a more darker world, but he's also inspired better people. However, in the end, as the ultimate act of redemption, Batman gives Jim permission to unmask him to save him and Tim. You then play as the Joker, slaughtering the rogues and burning down the city before the second injection, where we see Joker's fear, Batman himself, and the fear of being forgotten, which is what happens. Bruce leaves Joker behind to win, and to accept total self-annihilation. Arkham Knight answers Arkham City by adding so much dramatic pressure onto Batman's mistakes and fallibility that the only lesson Batman can learn is the responsibility of letting everything go.
Are you sure you want to do this, Master Bruce?
I've got to. It's the only way to protect them.
To let go of his friends and to let go of the player. In Batman's mind, we can see he's not the same man. Not just in terms of Joker in him, but on display, we can see the urges he's always had. Both us and Batman see the world he leaves behind, as teased from Arkham City. That sight is the true ending of Rocksteady's trilogy.
This world is doomed. Cities like Gotham will grow to resemble hell, breaking through the sidewalk, continuing up into the sky. Structures will grow to blot out the sun, and the people who live in them will be choked by the pollution they create. Eventually, when no space remains, this world will die, struggling for breath as man's mistakes nail the coffin shut. But this doesn't have to be your future.
They're everywhere.
Asylum was always the beginning of the end, just another night that led to the final nights. And now, it is the last night. Therefore, to let Batman go is less tragic and more cathartic as the final act. In Jim's final narration, he talks of how as Batman became darker, so did his world.
As his world grew darker, so did ours. When his war ended, our lives could begin again. He set us free. To live. To love.
But in the shadows, he's still around and strikes. We don't know if this image of him is him using the fear toxin or is supposed to be an abstract representation of what every criminal feels, but that's the point. To know, we'd still be in the position of performing him. To not know, we let him go. The game is over.
Now that they're out of the way, I can use that console